This is an explanation of the guitar solo that I played on my ultimate guitar shot of the song Axel F. I'm not going to go over the melody of Axel F. I'm just going to go over the guitar solo bits that I played. And we'll talk about the chord progression too now. So the chord progression is very simple. Repeats almost the entirety of the whole song. It's E minor, D, E minor, C, D, E minor. I think it's 4 beats long, 4 bars long, 16 beats, and it just repeats. So even though you've got some chord changes in there, primarily it feels like E minor almost the whole time. The C, when it gets about halfway through the chord progression, the C kind of introduces a little bit of tension, so it feels like there's some change. For the most part, you're playing over E minor. So let's talk about some of the licks that I played. I started it off with a bend, but rather than doing just your typical bend, that sort of thing, I wanted something that was created a little bit of a tension. So I'm sort of starting the bend off. I'm at the 10th fret on the B string, and I've already bent the note up before I even pick it, because I'm going to pick it, bring the note down, and without picking again, the note's still ringing, and I'm bending back up again. So you get this. And for me, I just thought it created a cool tension rather than just a standard bend. So that's that, pretty straightforward. From there, I do this quick phrase that is almost entirely an E minor 7 arpeggio. So the E minor 7 arpeggio looks like this. What I did was changed it around a little bit because I wanted to slide down to notes and make it a little more fluid. So I rearranged the notes to be this. And so the phrase you get is this. Let's start with the bend. And almost every one of those notes is out of the E minor 7 arpeggio. The next phrase that I play is just a few double stops. Double stops are I'm playing a note on one string and a note on another, and they're more or less ringing together. So it's sort of like the idea of a chord. And I'm also trying to create this forward motion so the notes get higher. Each double stop, goes higher up on the neck. So this was just the idea of we're going somewhere. So that's basically it. All these notes are just straight out of the E minor scale. From there, I have this phrase, which is basically we've arrived at, where we were headed. And that's basically completes the phrase. So we have this little motif. We're working our way up. We've got some high notes, and then a spot where we resolve. And it's sort of, for the listener, it's kind of gives them a chance to pause and listen. It's almost like, if you just kept going, you just kept going and going and going. It's like somebody talking in a conversation and they never pause. They never stop, to let maybe you want to get a word in edgewise for you to digest what was taken in, to give your ears a break, whatever. So the same concept. We're taking somebody somewhere. Notes are getting higher, so we're leading them up. And this is kind of the payoff. And then we're resolving. And all of these notes primarily are out of the E minor 7 arpeggio. That's E minor 7 arpeggio in the same spot. The next phrase has a tap note in it. It's pretty much, I'm going to pick almost one time, and everything else is done by the left hand and a tap note. And I'm basically doing kind of the same concept I've been doing. I'm just taking notes out of the E minor chord. But in this case, I'm adding a tension note. That note there, 14th fret, it's an F sharp. It doesn't belong in the E minor 7 arpeggio. It's a 9 in music theory, but 9s on minor chords sound really, really cool. And because it's out of the chord, it gives us something slightly different, something we weren't expecting, and it's a little more interesting. From there, once I'm in this position and I've tapped, notice I didn't pick again. The first set of notes, I picked the open string, and then I'm using my tap finger once I'm already on the fretboard to push. So it's acting like a pick again, and the fingering just changes up a little bit. So I'm there, and I'm just moving down the E minor scale basically. The phrase after that, which is probably the quickest phrase in the whole solo, this is 16th note sextuplets, which I always thought sounded very, very cool to my ears. Basically, if you have the beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are triplets. It's 2 sets of triplets in the course of one beat. So if you're used to a normal triplet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is more like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's just very fast. And all I did here was play straight down the E minor scale and resolved on E. The only thing I did a little different, trying to make it more interesting, is I slid from, not from any particular fret. I did that. So I slide into it. I held it for a moment. And my left hand did all the work. You can see you're picking one time that very first note, and it's just the E minor scale. So there you go. And I don't know, I just thought it sounded cool, so that's why it's there. All right, the next phrase is a similar idea to a phrase I had done prior. I'm starting with this motif where I'm establishing, it's basically a 3-note sequence, and I'm moving it higher and higher, just like the double stops. And then from there, I'm just basically goofing around with variations on the E minor 7 arpeggio. Ending on the note E. The next phrase is basically, it's an arpeggio, and what I've done is, the overall feel of the song is E minor. The G chord has 2 common tones with E minor, and E minor 7 has the entire G major chord in it. So I'm actually playing a G arpeggio in this next phrase. So you have, and all that came out of is G major 7 arpeggio. So the other thing I'm doing too is I'm kind of going backwards to a note. So I'm going, I'll play a note and then hit a note that I previously hit. And it kind of gives this interesting movement. And then I slide up to a spot where I can pause. I repeat this exact same phrase and only change my slide note. Same idea. We're taking a motif and going higher with the notes with the same motif, making it feel like we're leading somebody somewhere. And what we're leading them to is the last phrase in the solo. And resolving the whole thing on the note E. 90% of what I played out of that whole solo is notes primarily out of the E minor chord. Anything else that I've brought in was just to give it a little bit of flavor, so it just didn't feel like I was just playing, because E minor is only 3 notes, and even though we can move them up and down the octave, it gets boring after a while. So, and because the rhythm section feels more or less like E minor the whole time, that can get boring too. So by adding some oddball notes from the scale, at least in this case, everything was from the scale, it makes it a little more interesting to listen to, and you're just not bored with it after a minute, or at least I wasn't. So anyways, I hope that helped. Tabs in the description. Yeah, have fun with it.